Hello, I'm Nebuchadnezzar, and I'm back at it again with another multi-item sorter, this time for Java Minecraft. A little backstory, I used to play on Bedrock a lot, and we started playing Java because we finally, as a family, accrued enough computers to all play together. So we've been loving it, had to learn some new redstone mechanics and whatnot. And it came time, because we started playing Skyblock, and it came time where we needed some for storage, and I didn't have anything for it, so I was looking up a bunch, and I found Rapscallion's multi-item sorter V2 over here, and I really liked it. The only big downside for me was um, my son helps me build stuff now. Ever since we went to Java, we use Lightmatica, and he can help me effectively 3D print this stuff. And I was a little worried with the back here with all the weird rails. It'd probably be tough for me too, trying to learn all the little ways you can get them to lay properly. Otherwise, it's a really good multi-item sorter. And in fact, it's the basis. A lot of it's the basis for the one I came up with. So I give a lot of credit to Rapscallion, since this is his, and everyone who helped or influenced him for his. I also give credit to them because of that. But yeah, this is a pretty nice sorter here. Just toss a few items in here. I don't even know if these are the right ones, just to get an idea of how this one works. I do like the flowing motion that the minecarts will do. It's kind of mesmerizing. But the input I use is pretty much exactly the same with very little changed, at least on my final version. And here's his going. It's kind of funny. And the same for his, I think they call it a cart eater that gets rid of the cart and then all the items drop down. So I use this portion of it and then the input as well, and then redesigned all this stuff. And so just real quickly, here was my first try at it. Wasn't a big fan. I was, it works. I didn't like it. The rails are curvy here. I didn't think ahead. I didn't plan it out. Effectively, minecart comes here, gets some filters. It goes to see if the first module here has any of the filtered item, and then it goes up here if it does, and then goes to the right column. It's definitely slower than his, but it's easier to build. But it's wider. Also didn't like that. One of the biggest issues that I figured out after this one and the next one here is needing to unload those filters takes up so much space, which means extra track that the minecart has to go, and ultimately the speed at which you can fire off each minecart, because until this can go to the longest one, which is back to here, you can't have another minecart go under there. So that was really a big bottleneck for how fast I could go. So I kind of corrected that over here with as far as like the straightness of it. I did make it a little more compact with the rail. I think there's 2 less rails before it gets to the hopper, so it's a little bit faster. Also shorten this section down here. Once again, still slow. And the third one was the biggest redesign. And for those two, they were gimmicky because of the filters. I could only get a maximum of 63 of an item, or whatever one below the full stack is, because you have to have one available to be able to pick one up from the index chest. So it's a little wonky, and for those inputs, I did have to make some modifications to account for that. And then this one over here is the one. It's a little broken right now because when I copied it over, it didn't have all the stuff in the chest. But I'm not going to actually use it here. But this is we built this one in survival, and it's working well. Had to work through some issues I didn't catch on those, but we know when you play it in survival, it's you're more likely to find these things. And one of the big issues was I thought it was really great. I was able to do double hopper speed here at the bottom, so the items drop down instead of single hopper. You get double going into the barrel here as a temporary bulk storage. I mean, if you fill up one column so fast, eventually it'll slow down to hopper speed, but it takes multiple double chests going to one column at a time to finally do that. But the issue is if you only have like one item going down there, this detection system in the back will not detect it gets pulled down so fast, and then you'll just get a bunch of carts stuck up in the holding area right here. So I ended up adding this clock to each of them. So as long as there's a detection of a cart through here, and there's no items currently being detected in the hopper, it will do a clock, and it will keep shooting out mine carts until it detects something or it runs out of carts. So I got that working. I had to make adjustments to this stuff over here based on that as well. It's a wonderful multi-item sorter. I still wanted to make it better, but I already made it in our Skyblock world, which is why there's like scaffolding in some areas. And you know, I think I made a little walkway to make it easier to get around to the index chests, so you could check them and mess with the filters and whatnot. And but the principle of this one, the reason it can go so much faster was I'm using 2 carts to that issue I talked about with the 4 hoppers. By using 2 carts, I can eliminate that. So the carts that come up here do not need filters, because those are the ones that are going to be directly to the front, which then get unloaded. And so I transfer the duties of finding the right column to another minecart. So this will trigger another minecart, drops off an item right here in this hopper. This one will pick it up, and it gets 4. I use hopper minecarts just for make it easier, and it gets 4 filters. So now, and this is also important because like on those other designs, the order of the minecart would be filter, 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 items. That means you have to unload the filters before you can put the item back in the chest. But for this, it's the first one, which means it can be the first thing that you drive over, which allows you to make a very, very small track for it. So now you have one item, and then you have 4 filters behind it. And then it's just pretty much a straight shot to find this thing. And once it finds it, the chest will lower the signal, and then both sides will retract, and it'll drop the minecart down into this track, and then it'll get up to this hopper, which is 9 track from, I think the longest one over there on those other ones was over 20, is like almost 30, I think. So substantially faster than those. Gets up to 9 though, and it returns it, and then that'll shut it. And then this goes down here to get destroyed. And the reason I picked the hopper minecarts because I didn't want to have a bunch of unloading for each column. By making a hopper minecart, that means the cart that's getting destroyed and all the filters are all the same thing. And then I can just drop them into the line that all the hopper minecarts then get spit into. I will say this in survival. I mean, it's a lot of iron, but we have an iron farm. It is tedious crafting all those hopper minecarts, I will say that. But it's so much easier in the system because you just have that one item circling around, making sure your input for your minecarts, this extra minecart one, and then all this filter storage is, you know, you just circulate through all those to make sure you have keep them full and whatnot. The other issue I had with it was a little bit too fast, and I had to slow it down up by 1 on the timer, just due to the fact that if you had, and you can see it right here, if one of these retracted, then if a cart came too soon, this would try to retract before this would extend, and then you would only pull back the piston, and then the cart would this would get pushed forward, but then that piston would still be back, everything would be forward still, and it would just make its way all the way to the unsorted. So I had to slow it down. Another reason why I wanted to redesign. And then, so ultimately this is what I came up with. It is smaller and faster, substantially faster. It's only 13 wide, which out of all the multi-item stores I just showed you, it's the most narrow, the narrowest. The only downside to it is it's directional. Now, have the 2 versions of it here. So you have this torch one, and so this is the torch one. See the torches on the side here. Because based on if it's like the south or the west, it has to be, southwest. It has to be unpowered, depowered. And if it's on the other 2 sides, east and north, they have to be powered to face the right direction. That was a little frustrating to come up with, And you can see like I use target blocks over here and the other ones don't. That's the big downside, but this is still easy to build though, which is great. But I did want to do some offset thing where the rails were wider apart on one side. I want it to fit exactly the same size, and you have to have only that one delay. Because if you added more torches or whatever, then you have to slow down the track, and then it doesn't get through there as fast. So I didn't want to sacrifice speed, so I made it a little bit harder trying to get these side by side to work without commingling redstone signals here. And just like with rapscallions, I didn't go over it, but on the input it'll pre-sort non-stackables, which is great because anyone who's ever designed a multi-item sorter knows those really bog down the speed of the sorter when you have to go searching for something that you'll never find, and then it just goes to your unsorted on there. So I have filled in all of the chests, except for obviously the unsorted and the overflow there. And let's put these in the input. So this is going to be, so there's 32 columns in this design. Hope you guys, I'm not that great at designing here on the interior decorating, but I try my best to make it look like something for our Skyblock world. And so the water on the track is to slow them down on the bend for timing wise, just to get them all in the right spot. And you can see how fast these are going. I believe it's about a minute and 14 seconds to do what I just did on average. Now that's from the time I press the first button to the last minecart being in the right column and broken. And you can see them spitting out the hopper minecarts over here, and they're circulating, filling up the filters first. Originally I had it because it was closer, filling up the input here, but those filters, because they're non-stackable items, they get used pretty quickly, so I want to keep those filled up as quickly as best as possible. Once you get enough circulating, this will be fine, and this will eventually shut the system off if you don't have enough. Generally, that hasn't really been an issue. That the only time that's ever happened so far was when I had that problem with minecarts getting stuck because they didn't detect the signal, and there was just so many stacked up, and they weren't returning to the system. So because that's not a problem now, and you see everything's already sorted, what I did. Because it's not a problem now, having that go last is fine, and having a little bit of extra items floating around after the fact. And if we go back inside, yeah, and they're all sorted. And put a thing of, let me just do some unstackables real fast, some tridents. And so he thought of a lot of great logic for this. There's input lock. So if there's too much on this pressure plate, it will send a signal, which is compared against this chest, which will then, oh, I actually forgot to re-put this on there after I pasted it. My bad. It'll send a signal down here that will prevent the input from working. Like you push the button and nothing happens. At the same time, to share that, if this chest gets low on minecarts, it'll send a signal to swap this dropper setup, which will then detect a signal when the item gets shot over here, and then we'll power that redstone, which will then power all this down here to also lock it. So now in my Skyblock world, obviously, whenever you make a multi-item store, you start bringing all your stuff over and you throw it in. And I was getting the input lock because of that, just throwing so much stuff into it, and that's fine. But you can throw quite a bit, several double chests worth of stuff in there before you get it. And now this one's faster than the one we're using, which means it'll clear it faster, and so yeah, that's perfectly fine. But in the cases of when you only send up one item, that's why I have these like water streams in the back. It's for that one item the filter cart grabs. So if you have like one item, this comes up, it drops it off. Now it's an empty cart. Well, we don't want empty carts going into the cart eater up front because it'll just get stuck there. It won't send a signal telling that there's anything up there. Text if it's empty, comes back here and then drops down just the same as if the column it went up into was if it had a non-stackable item. And then that one cart still goes off, it finds the right column, and then it drops that one item off here, which will then drop down into the water and then go into the correct column. So here are the rates for each version. You can see the progress I made with it. So version 1, you're ranging from 0.2 to 13.1 items per second based on what kind of stacks you're throwing in there. And I know when you're sorting, you're not going to hit your peak that often because you're not just tossing in a bunch of full stacks of perfectly blended items throughout the categorizer. Because as you can see below there, the 27 stacks unsorted. So the more items you have in a certain column, that's going to slow down the total speed. Now the items will still go to the column quickly, but the column will then bottleneck at double hopper speed and eventually single hopper speed if you really overload it. So the 27 stacks, so full chest to the unsorted, that's how long it took for the last cart to discard its items into the column, because it gets all the carts into there really fast, but the waiting for them to all at double hopper speed. So the speed will be dictated based on the blend of items you have, and the more you have of one, it'll slow down the overall process of getting it to the items. But I think for most people, when you're doing a multi-item sorter and you toss your items in there, there's going to be a blend of items. They might not be full stacks, but you might have 5 to 12 different kinds of items in there. So you will be more towards somewhere in this range than just 27 stacks into their final column there. So the second one had a small improvement up to 15 items per second, and that's the time it took, as I said before, from the moment I pressed the first button to the last cart being broken. And then the version 3, this is the one I built in survival and worked out the kinks, and it's working good so far for me. And there's a massive drop in time, over a minute, and this is the one that you can actually go up to 64 stack items, or 16. Those work as well. Just max stack. You don't have to have one item space in it. Max speed of 26 items per second. And then the final one, the one that moving forward, if I need to build it, I'll build it. But I'm not going to convert the one we have in Skyblock because it's already built. It works fine. And yeah, I wish I would have made this one made it before I had built that one, but we were antsy to build something and finally get our stuff sorted out. But yeah, it gets up to 28.5 items per second, over 11 times hopper speed on average. So like that what I just showcased for 33 stacks, that's pretty nutty. Considering like my old categorizers would top out at less than 5 items per second, which is still great for back then, but in the age of minecart hoppers and being able to maintain those items instead of them breaking up into a hopper and a minecart, it's definitely pitiful by comparison. But I appreciate you guys, all 50 of you, by stopping by and checking this video out. Thank you.